same stunt in Bakersfield. The ordinance passed on June 9th, 1982. It read, "No person shall knowingly, nor shall any device, machine, or contrivance be used to maim, injure, or kill any animal, including fowl, during any live theatrical or musical performance in the city." Ozzy would go on to play many shows in Bakersfield. Prices are coming down in the Kern County real estate market. More homes are listed, but there are fewer buyers. According to the Crabtree report, demand has fallen by 4.8%, while supply has increased by 10.1%. And the Kern County Sheriff's Office invites the community to join them at the Dunkin' on Allen Road from 5 to 7 p.m. this evening for their Dunkin' for a Difference event. Their aim is to support Cadet Post 519 during their summer donation drive. I'm Bill Robbins in the KERN newsroom with news every half hour or when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Please. Flores, turn this up. Thank you very much.
I had 3 more seconds and I had the whole thing. I was supposed to have 3 minutes.
Sir, thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
It's the JR Show from Studio 99 at the American General Media Complex. On air at News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Online at kernradio.com. Now, here is your host, JR.
Thank you. JR is still on vacation. He got a couple days, and so I'm hosting today's 1 hour segment, which is what his show is right now. It may go big time later. And then, of course, we have the great Ralph Bailey right afterwards at 3 o'clock. So, and I will be doing Ralph Bailey's show August 4, and we'll talk about that at the end, some of the guests that I'll have. And today, I'm just going to, one thing I'd encourage, I have things I'm going to speak about. I didn't have any call-in guests, but if you have certain questions that you either want to know more about while I'm speaking or something else, you can call them in, and Chris Burdick, our wonderful producer, will take your question and forward them to me, and we'll see whether I can answer them. But in the meantime, I know today is a lot going on about the horrible, horrible case that's going on in Idaho, and I have a lot of things I'd like to say about it, but I'm not going to. It's a sad, horrific situation to have to watch, let alone to be living it as one of the family or friends that testified today. But I spoke a bit on Monday about high-speed rail. And the reason I want to bring it up to you again as listeners is the importance of you understanding when you get an initiative on the ballot, which now is mostly only on the November ballot, the legislature, they get the first lower numbers that show up. They're the first things you vote on, something the legislators put on the ballot. And understand, in Sacramento, the state Senate, the state Assembly, over 2/3 is controlled by the Democrat Party. So virtually anything you see that comes from the legislature on your ballot, understand where it's coming from. And I'm not just being critical of the word Democrat, but it means it is far left and crazy. And that goes back to high-speed rail and how it got on the ballot in 2008 and passed barely. I think the vote spread was, it was like 52 to 47%, 52 yes, 47% no. But it shows you even then the state was not so sure about it, and for good reason. And it was billed as, it was going to be Los Angeles to San Francisco in 1 hour and some type of incredible thing. Now it's a 500-mile trek of San Francisco to Lodi to Bakersfield to around someday get down to LA. And the cost factor, thank goodness Donald Trump, both in his first term and in his second term, has pulled back money that the previous president to him, Obama and Biden, kept throwing money at California that had done nothing. They had not built 1 inch of rail. They haven't ordered 1 car to ride on it. They haven't done anything, but they have thrown a bunch of concrete up in different areas to build over ramps or whatever. They paid a lot of consultants, and when they pay consultants, you don't get product, consultants get paid for whatever analyst they get from that analysis they get from that. The High-Speed Rail Commission traveled to Italy on our expense with the money that was, we were supposed to build this thing. They said it'd take about 10 years, about $6 billion. It's now been what, 17 years, nothing built, right? So they started spending the money on going on junkets like to Italy, because Italy has high-speed rail. And they are, I don't know if they were trying to brag, they were the length of California, and they wanted to study their program. So my question to the commissioner when I was in a room with her was, now you folks were there 8 days to test high speed, not slow speed, high speed rail. And I wonder how many great restaurants you went to during that trip that really required you to be there 8 days on a high-speed rail that's the length of California, which means it should take, whatever, 2.5 hours to get wherever you're trying to go. Again, another boondoggle. The commission should be removed. The whole thing should be removed. And in the meantime, Florida, which is probably one of the best governed states in this country, at least of major size. I know smaller states can do a great job too, but when you're a larger populated state, they used a private company. Private company did the whole thing. They built 235 miles of high-speed rail, and that's about half of what our folks in California said they were going to build or still are going to build. They did it in 10 years for $6 billion. Our proposal in this state initially was $33 billion, and that they were going to get outside investors. So far, they've had no outside investors. It's now going to cost then they said $80 billion 4 years ago. And now they're saying $133 billion. It's never going to be built, but it will spend the billions if we don't put a stop to it. And this legislature, again, they dominate the place. They have more than 2/3 votes. They have 3/4 votes. So you really are going to have to somehow expose it. Trump's doing a good job exposing the fraud of taking this money from us. But you, the voters, half of you listening possibly today, voted for it, and that's why we get these things. And it's in fact, it's you actually vote for it versus all the other baloney that the legislature passes and then never really comes through on, but burns up the money. You really need to look at anything that comes out of the legislature as an initiative, not things that people go on the street, volunteers work hard on, like Prop 36 that we had here a couple years ago, and our district attorney Cindy Zimmer worked hard on it. The whole state worked on it, getting signatures. And that takes a ton of work, 800,000 plus signatures that have to be valid voters, and valid signatures. I'll put a quote around valid voters. And whether or not that really is going to work, it's very tough on a volunteer basis. But when the legislature, they just vote for it in the building, boom, it's on the ballot. And so please notice what you're voting for, because we also voted for water storage, water conveyance, water dams. We did that in 2018. It passed with a budget. Have you seen any? Not one. Not one has been built. We got a question.
We do, yes.
On this subject?
Well, high-speed rail.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Jerry's on the line for you.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jerry. What's your question about high-speed rail?
I like your perspective on it. You don't realize how much time goes by, and you don't realize how much waste has been going on. And it's really good that you're looking at it and saying, hey, Well, now I heard, are they trying to put the kibosh on it, or they're still fighting it?
Well, the state legislature is still fighting it because Trump did the smart dad thing, which is, kids, we're cutting this off, right? But they're going to still push for it because they take the money and they don't spend it building the high-speed rail. They use the money for anything they want to play with.
Yeah, good Italian food.
Right. I know if it took 8 days, the number of lunches and dinners, they weren't eating on the bullet train, I'll tell you that.
There you go. But anyway, you're doing a great job, taking the show over, and it's always good to hear your perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, so we have to, so there's two reasons I bring it up. One, because Donald Trump gets skewered by a lot of the media when he says no more money for this. But we all understand he's exactly right. We have somebody in the White House doing the right thing, taking the heat for those people in California. Again, not me, but the 53% of you who voted for this. He's trying to save you from yourself. And he's cutting back on any California monies that by trying to build, the first thing they're going to build here in Bakersfield, they want to build the terminal. And they are trying to right now buy the Get Board, the bus people's facility off of Golden State. I don't know if any of you have seen it, probably haven't had a reason to go there. I go there because I'm on that commission, and that's another story. But I would say we don't even touch, I don't want their money. I don't want anything to do with it because it's never going to get built. And who knows what will end up on there, encampments or what. But you don't start with the ending construction of a terminal when you haven't laid 1 foot of rail, let alone you're never going to. It's never going to be built. It shouldn't have been started. We burned up tax. That's your money, your tax dollars. Didn't come from somebody else. Didn't come from your neighbor. Came from you. And it's gone. That money they burned up is gone. And that's why they're begging both Biden and Obama to send them money, which they did. So, and then they had a proposal to, shorten it, make it a shorter and make it slower, have it hook into the regular rail lines. That's their solution to save money, make it go slower. And, but I remember when Amtrak said, when this thing was being put up, they told me if we spent 10 cents on the dollar, and that's the dollar then that they were spending, on improving the track for Amtrak, they could go 25 miles an hour faster, makes them plenty fast to zip around California. But that wasn't the idea. The idea was to burn up and consultants, get the money for these things right off the bat. And so that's another very bad use of tax money. So please, you're going to have ballot initiatives up next year. They're going to be like this. There'll be something else. I haven't looked at what the legislature may have already put up there, but they'll put up something. But by golly, we got to wise up. You can't build things in this state in a smart way with the kind of leadership that we have in Sacramento. We just don't have the brain power. And honest, whatever you think of Elon Musk, he came here in 2013 and spoke at Cal State, and he said the science they're using is 20th century on this, not 21st century. That's how bad it was when he was here in 2013, and they're still doing that. So, but we'll take a first break and come right back. This is JR Show. Cathy Abernathy filling in.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Start your day right. First Look with Scott Cox, 6 to 9 a.m.
On the Thursday edition of the First Look program, we're going to talk to First Five spokesperson and probable Canadian Kevin Bartle about what they've got going on. We've got state-of-the-art news and traffic and, yes, weather. It's all happening 6 to 9 a.m. right here at News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
First Look with Scott Cox, 6 to 9 a.m. News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Hey, this is JR for Bakersfield Weight Loss. Let's talk about GLP-1s like semaglutides, those weight loss injections that seem to be all the rage these days. If you're currently using semaglutides injections but aren't seeing the results you want, or you've hit a plateau, don't worry. The team at Bakersfield Weight Loss is ready to help you speed up your results safely and effectively. Maybe you had to stop taking the injections due to side effects, or because your insurance no longer covered your treatment, or even worse, you gained the weight back. Don't give up. Go to BakersfieldWeightLoss.com. What you don't hear about these injections, many people are facing failed results, bad side effects, rising costs, or simply want to get off the injections. At Bakersfield Weight Loss, they offer a breakthrough natural approach to help reset your metabolism to get the weight off fast and easy and keep it off without exercising, prepackaged foods, or counting calories. They helped me do it. I lost 25 pounds and have kept the weight off. Schedule your free consultation today at BakersfieldWeightLoss.com or call 661-449-1150. Results may vary.
NKST Health is proud to partner with Kern Radio, now known as NKST Health. The North Kern South Tulare Healthcare District, created in 1966 to improve healthcare access for the residents of Delano, Wasco, McFarland, Early Mart, and surrounding cities. Our GNC Family Clinic in Delano is now accepting new patients and open early and late. Call the GNC Family Clinic to schedule an appointment today at 661-725-1010. We offer free athletic physicals to youth and high school athletes from all area schools year-round. Our services also include family practice practice, pediatrics, and women's care, including OB services. We accept Medi-Cal and most major insurances, and we are now taking new patients, walk-ins, and same-day appointments. GNC Family Clinic has bilingual female and male providers and have been serving the community for more than 12 years. Call to schedule an appointment today. 661-725-1010. The GNC Family Clinic in Delano, your hometown clinic. That's 725-1010.
This is a special notice to U.S. taxpayers owing $10,000 or more to the IRS. Tax Relief Advocates is urgently notifying taxpayers that tax relief initiatives are now available that may significantly reduce or eliminate what you owe. If you're afraid of an IRS lien, levy, or wage garnishment, don't lose hope. You can now take advantage of these current relief programs to end all collections, reduce the amount you owe, and resolve your tax problem. Even if you have years of unfiled tax returns or are already in a payment plan, you may still qualify for significant relief. Struggling taxpayers can now get relief they need during these hard economic times. A hotline has been established by Tax Relief Advocates for you to call and see what you qualify for. They are A+ rated with the BBB and have over 1,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait. Call 800-575-7147. 800-575-7147. That's 800-575-7147, or simply visit TRA.com.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
The Charlie Kirk Show, weekdays at 6 p.m. on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Now, back to the JR Show.
Now, the high-speed rail, we just went through that one. And this is Cathy Abernathy. I've got a whole bunch of things I want to share with you that we need to, and I got to say, Donald Trump's doing it, but it's tough. It's tough to battle the criticism that comes out. Let's talk about the Department of Education. All right, the Federal Department of Education. When did we get it? What brilliant president, academically well-known, maybe a professor prior to being president, something like that. We had a peanut farmer from Georgia, Jimmy Carter. He came up with the Department of Education. That we didn't have one. We didn't have one for what, 150, 70 years? But right before he left office, he and Ronald Reagan tried to do away with it. He created the Department of Education. What happens when you create a federal department of anything? Immediately, you hire a whole slew of people. So they today have 4,000 people working in the Federal Department of Education. Who pays their paycheck? You do if you're a working person. That's who pays their paycheck. 4,000 people at a $2.5 billion a year payroll. Okay? A lot of them don't even, as you know, Washington, D.C., before Trump got there, they were still on the COVID lifestyle 4 years later. They're not working at their offices, so they're not even there. And they're still spending billions, 4,000 people a year. And remember, they're going to have their pay and their health benefits and their pensions going on, particularly if somebody moved them into any different department. But hopefully Trump's getting rid of them. It's been described as a cash-eating machine, and that's very true, because you use the word education, and it's almost like church. Well, how can you argue about education? Well, you can, because I went on several ratings. Where does United States fit in on literacy, on reading skills, on children under 6th grade, how they're judged on their skills, on college educated? Just one of them ranks the literacy test as United States isn't first, second, or third. I'm sorry to tell you, they're not first, second, or third. The United States is 22nd in the world. Okay, it's even beat by war-torn Ukraine. Okay, how bad can we be with all this education money and all these schools all over this country with no battles going on that are by some foreign country like Russia? And we're lower than them. At the top, of course, Singapore, China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Estonia, those of you who know where Estonia is, Ireland, Switzerland, New Zealand, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, all these that are very vulnerable in many ways. But Ukraine even beats us. And I don't say that meaning like they're not smart. I'm just saying I can't imagine those poor kids get to go to school 5 days a week. Of course, Japan was 6 days a week starting 15 years ago, and we should have done the same. But we don't, because we want people on the weekends riding their electric bikes, no exercise, but riding their electric bikes, all the scooters all over town. So President Trump is saying I'm doing away with it. And he appointed a cabinet secretary. His plan is to do away with it. But I want to tell you, to show you, besides the quality of education, which is really hurting, as we know, kids can't read. I can't put it all in the schools. I have friends that are teachers. I don't blame all the teachers. There's plenty of blame in the home. And I'll get to that later in the show too, about what isn't going on in the home, like reading a book. But there's a legislator from Indiana who even had a bill, and I don't have the date on this, but it was in the last 2 years at the most, to show you how they're trying to skew education. What are facts, what aren't facts. But this is just one man's bill, was that you could not teach, you couldn't even teach a student in elementary school on, K through 12, if it was about Christopher Columbus or a president of the United States who owned an enslaved person. You couldn't even teach about them. And then it said, but it is permitted if you talk about them as being harmful to our society and their deception to the people. So, as we all know, people of all stature, of any means, did have slaves in the South and some even in the North, of course. But that was the way of life then. That has changed about 150 years ago, but they don't want to ever have you forget that. So now they don't want to even talk about Christopher Columbus and people who discovered the New World. And they want to hide so much from our children. And that's, again, when you federalize, when you have state politicians that do things like this, when you keep reelecting them when they do things like this, this is what you get. And so I really, I'm happy that he's going after the Department of Education. So it was created in 1980. It's now been 25, 35, 45 years ago. It's what's done with it. Let's get rid of it. Rent the building out to the Hyatt or somebody, because they need more hotels back there. And stop paying people who aren't even going to work. But 15-year-olds in the United States are 38th ranked in math, 24th ranked in science out of 79 countries. They can't write, they can't spell. And we're spending thousands per student, so it's not a factor of the spending. I'll speak later if I have time on this. I've seen the books that were used at community college here in town. I looked up the background of everybody writing about political science and campaigns. Their entire career was working in a college. And I just don't think that gives you a perspective on a lot of these things. But the other issue you hear a lot about is school choice. And that's, of course, the National Teachers Union. Again, I don't know about your individual teachers in your school, but National Teachers Union is fighting that. And they say, well, then the children that are in the poorer communities, those will be the schools that people don't want their kids in, and then they won't have students, they won't have funding. Let's let those kids go to the best schools, or let's improve the schools. As a very important person to me once said, I want to see principals standing outside on the street saying, come to the school. You want stronger math? We're doing stronger math. You want this? We're doing this. They shouldn't just be, you're stuck, folks. You live here. You have to go to the school, and we don't have to perform, or we can pull them out for special sessions. That's another thing. Kids being pulled out to special assemblies all day long, not good. And again, I know in my neighborhood, these kids, when they're not in school, in this day and age, it started out, you went to school, right? September to June, because in the summer you helped dad bring in the crops. Nobody does that anymore. Certainly not here in California and in most of the country. So they don't need a 3-month break. And teachers, I'm sorry, none of us get 3-month breaks. So that's besides, or 2 weeks at Christmas and 1 week at Easter. We don't get those things. So let's get them in school more at a minimum. And let's make sure that we can pull our ratings up. I mean, Ukraine's kids are better schooled than ours. And again, parents, you're part of the problem, no doubt about it. but schools are as well, particularly when they play games with textbooks or what girls spend their time on, what girls or boys. What girls can be in boys sports, what boys can be in girls sports. Let's do that when we move up ranks, when we beat Ukraine on a national listing of literate people. So we will go next subject. We're going to talk about something dear to my heart. It's kind of technical, but I want you all to understand it better, which is the subject of how these various districts, congressmen, assemblymen, senators, how they get drawn to elect a certain party. So we'll be right back. This is Cathy Abernathy on the JR Show. I went too early.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in
There you go.
I'm going to learn this, folks. They've gone too modern for me. But yeah, Ralph Bailey's in studio, and he's coming up right after this. And I admire that he does this every day of the week, but he does it for 3 hours, and that's tough to do. I wanted to talk about politics, California. I want to give you a perspective. This hit me when I looked up, as you recall, Gavin Newsom ran for governor 2 years ago, or November 22. Okay, not last November, but 2 years before that. And the voter registration in California is half Democrat registration. The other half is Republican and NPP, no party preference. I'm not sure what that means to the people that pick it. I think some are 15-and-a-half-year-olds who are getting their driver's permit, and the DMV pushes them when they're trying to get their license, and they don't have a clue, so they just tell them, do NPP, and I think that stays with them for a while. They wake up when you can't vote in the presidential primary on a Republican side if you're not with the Republican Party. But so it's about equal population registered voter-wise. So I looked up, we all know, I mean, maybe you don't all know the exact number, but Gavin Newsom got 59% of the vote when he ran for governor second term. The Republican's name was Brian Dahle, D-A-H-L-E, a little hard to pronounce, wonderful man, assemblyman from way up north, but they didn't spend much money on him. He didn't get much coverage. I don't think there was even a debate that was on. I think there was a debate on Sunday on PBS or something once. We used to have real California governor debates. We didn't have one. So the Democrat Newsom got 59%. The Republican got 41%. Pretty good, 41%. Well, then I looked a few months later. I thought, well, how did all the other statewide candidates do? The ones that ran the whole state, their names on the ballot for the entire state. And that would be U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Treasurer, Controller, Insurance Commissioner. All those jobs are on the ballot statewide. Everybody in California gets to vote for those. On those, so a Republican and a Democrat went head on all those. In every one of those seats, those statewide elected offices, with a Republican candidate with name ID lower than a neighbor of mine, 2 blocks away, and lower than your neighbor's name ID. No name ID, absolutely no money spent on them, but they had an R after their name for Republican. Some were running against incumbent secretaries of state or attorney generals. Every one of them running statewide got between 41 and 45% of the statewide vote. So now you're saying, well, Cathy, they still lost. Yes, they still lost, but there's a significance in that percentage that I want to share with you. And if any of you want to get this in email, send it to me, send me a note, and I will email it to you. So you wonder why, so they had no name ID and they had hardly any money spent on them. And yet they did so well to get 45% of the people said, I'm not voting for that Democrat, even incumbent lieutenant governor. I'm going to vote for this unknown, totally unknown person, but he's a Republican. So, and then this year, 2 years later, last November, Trump and Harris, Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey, Republicans both lost. But neither of them, Trump didn't campaign here. He raised money here. Garvey, I never saw him anywhere. 40% of the voters in California voted for Trump and for Steve Garvey. 40%. Okay, 4 out of 10. Okay, as somebody jokes for people, I'll say people in India, where I'm from. But now you look at how many congressmen that are Republican from California. There's 52 seats in California, but those are hand drawn. Okay, of those 52 seats, 9 have Republicans in them as a Republican congressman. That's 17%, not 40, 45, 43. 17% of the people of the votes in California went to a Republican for Congress. Assembly, there's 80 assembly people in California. Of the 80, 19 elected a Republican. That means they have 23% of that building. State Senate, 10. Shannon Grove is one of 10 of 40 state senators in California, 10. That's not, you got to have 21 to be in the majority in the Senate. You've got to have 41. We have 19 of the 80, so we're never getting near 41. We have 10 of the, you'd need 21 to take over the state Senate. So why is it that we have a statewide vote with people choosing Republicans who spend no money, and most of these other races, money is spent on them. And the reason is the state of California is a state you can't change the border. And so everybody gets to vote. There's no cuteness. You just, there's your governor candidate, everybody in California, go vote. But when it gets to these other seats that have to be drawn because by population, we get so many seats. In 2008, and I won't go through all that today with you, but you can read about it. The commission was created again by the legislature, a commission that has one criteria. The main criteria for how they draw a seat is called this term communities of interest. Communities of interest could mean you're urban, you're rural, you live near same transportation, you have access to the same media. I don't know how that's a community of interest, but that's the excuse they use. And then they draw districts that are so loaded as, for example, they will take Los Angeles, heavy Democrat population down there. Granted, there'll be congressional districts there with heavy Democrat. But what they do is they take enough of it and then they stick a finger into San Bernardino County or Riverside County or Orange County or the San Fernando Valley, and they'll suck some Republicans into that district. And not enough to let a Republican have a chance of winning, but just enough to make sure it's harder to draw a seat in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, Orange County, or San Fernando Valley that has enough Republicans to elect a Republican. I hope I'm being clear on this. The game that is played by this commission is to create seats that favor the Democrat Party. Why? Because the staff to this commission is government employees of the state of California. The attorney to this commission is from the California State Assembly, a Democrat that works in the California State Assembly. The commissioners, there can't be people like me that understand how this works. You can't even drive by my house and get on the commission. It's that kind of a selective process. It is people that don't have a clue about how to draw a seat. And I say that because the Republican commissioner, we invited him on a Zoom before the Republican Party here, before they started drawing. And we said, hey, what are you going to do? How are you going to draw these districts? And he said, I don't know. I'm just waiting for staff to give me something. And if any of you that might have been part of watching these hearings, they drew these seats. And then I think it was Christmas Eve, for example, the seat that at the time Kevin McCarthy was a congressman and would be running in it. At the last minute, like Christmas Eve, it was a rectangle. And then they drew an arm, like my arm, like that, narrow and long. And they sucked up a lot of Republicans out of the seat that David Valadao would run in, making the Kevin McCarthy, the 20th district, so heavy Republican, but making the other seat vulnerable to possibly a Democrat could win. That's the system. That's why we can win 45% of the votes statewide for any Yahoo with no money, no name, but they got an R after their name for Republican. But we can't win more than 9 of 52 congressional seats, 10 of 40 state Senate seats. And so my point is we have to change the law on redistricting, which is going to take a people's initiative. You're not going to get reform out of the California legislature. And the simplest way to do it is to say, draw these districts, 52 congressional, 80 assembly, a 40 state Senate, honoring city and county lines. The less you break those lines, the better your plan. And between AI and some math whizzes at our colleges, we can draw plans that honor that. But the system now is so full of corruption that when you see Republicans get elected in these seats, they win with 60, 65% of the vote. You don't need that many. 53% is plenty. But they give you that much because they're trying to make other seats that pack the Republicans into a few seats, and then they try to create as many Democrat seats as they can. This is public. This is well known by that building up there. But when you see things that go on in this state, month after month, year after year, and this has been going on since 2010, these lines that have been drawn with these so-called rules. 15 years later, you've got what we've got: gas tax, no water in the fire hydrants, no water for our farmers, shutting down refineries and oil companies so that we buy our oil from Venezuela, and shutting down the oil jobs this county had that these young men were making great pay in, and now they're driving trucks instead. This is why these things happen, and it's this drawing pre-design who's going to control. And so what it is going to take an initiative, it's going to take 800,000 signatures. It's going to take money we have to still have paid, some of you would help when we get 10% of the signatures that way, but we really would need paid signature gatherers. So, and then if we get 800,000 that are valid as checked by June of next year, it'll be on the November ballot. And so my other hook in it is, besides doing that, I want Republican staff, let the Republican commissioners hire their own instead of letting the Democrats hire all these state employees, and redraw the lines in 2028 so that we can have competitive races for Congress, state Senate, and Assembly in 2028, rather than wait till the next census and redrawing in 2032. That's poli-sci. I'll say poli-sci 101. I don't think they teach it in high school, but I hope you folks can understand it. And I will send you, if you want to read what I've written up on this. And then in November, of course, of 2026, we'd have to campaign for a yes vote. Now, I'm sure Donald Trump would love this plan. I'm sure Gavin Newsom would hate this plan, as would every Democrat in office. You know who else won't like it? A lot of campaign consultants up in Sacramento. They make money whether the candidates win or lose. And so they're not so concerned about this. But I think we are at the point now where we can't do that anymore. And so I'm I'm hoping, as you talk with folks interested in politics, office holders here in town, talk to them about why should we sit under a system where an unknown can run as a Republican statewide and get 45% of the vote with no money, no name, but we're sitting on 9% of the congressional seats and 20% and 22% of the Assembly and Senate. We're not even a fight. And let me tell you the other bad part of this. Democrats, there's so many of them in Sacramento that when there's something tough like raising the gas tax or shutting down oil refineries, they don't want that on their back because they're going to run statewide someday. Now, I don't want gas tax on my record. They don't have to vote because they have so many Democrats. They don't have to vote. That's another reason why I'm choking up over this, seriously. I'm real passionate about this. I got to meet some multimillionaires who might help me with the funding because it could take $2 million to qualify it. But is that not worth it, considering what Sacramento has done to the state, done to your paycheck, done to the fact that State Farm won't insure our properties anymore, our car insurance shoots up, our electricity bills? It's all because we have a legislature that is so out of touch with reality. Okay, so that's your heavy poli-sci lesson for the day. And I hope you, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm doing all the wrong things here. But we're going to go to a commercial break, Chris. So, and I will be back in good form. I'm just overly caught up with the subject. So we'll be back. It's a JR show. This is Cathy Abernathy.
brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council. This is a special notice to U.S. taxpayers owing $10,000 or more to the IRS. Tax Relief Advocates is urgently notifying taxpayers that tax relief initiatives are now available that may significantly reduce or eliminate what you owe. If you're afraid of an IRS lien, levy, or wage garnishment, don't lose hope. You can now take advantage of these current relief programs to end all collections, reduce the amount you owe, and resolve your tax problem. Even if you have years of unfiled tax returns or are already in a payment plan, you may still qualify for significant relief. Struggling taxpayers can now get relief they need during these hard economic times. A hotline has been established by Tax Relief Advocates for you to call and see what you qualify for. They are A+ rated with the BBB and have over 1,000 5-star reviews. Don't wait. Call 800-575-7147. 800-575-7147. That's 800-575-7147, or simply visit TRA.com.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
The Charlie Kirk Show, weekdays at 6 p.m. on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Now, back to the JR Show.
It's not unusual to see me cry.
Okay, I got a lozenge, so my voice should be better. Couple things I want to share about. This kind of goes into education, but I think it's interesting. Again, if there's a subject you want me to talk about, I'm going to go quickly through this. But I saw an article in the paper today. It said, put down the phone and pick up a book. And I know you think, oh yeah, that's what my mom would say or something like that. This is really getting serious. I'll go back to those stats. I want to remind you, Ukrainian students have higher literacy under a full-scale war zone than we do in this country. But what's been going on in our schools today in terms of, for example, this is college English majors. These are folks that got into college after high school. The evidence is showing now that only 5% of English majors at 2 Midwestern schools, I don't know the name of the schools, but could make sense of paragraphs from a Charles Dickens book. The high school students taking the SAT are no longer expected to understand passages longer than 150 words. The teachers are passing up teaching from the classics. And so they're saying this does matter, that we're reading bits and pieces on the phone. Kids are reading them on their phones, but they're not reading books. And reading aloud to your children and having them see you reading. That's one thing I always compliment that Cosby Show for, Bill Cosby Show. When they showed the family, the mother who's an attorney, she's sitting home on the living room couch, she's reading a book. She's not watching TV. She's not, goofing off, doing her nails, whatever, but doing things that showed an image that I think is important to show. But after dinner, instead of walking into the TV, how about walking and sitting down with a book so your family sees it and you read it? This is not a silly thing to pursue. And I'll tell you, I had this hard experience when I taught poli-sci, political science at Taft College. There's no reflection on the college, no reflection on Taft, because the students were mostly not from Taft. They're from all over the county. And they're 18 to 35, I would say, the folks in the class. And I told them at the start, I said, well, you're not going to take a class from Cathy Abernathy on politics if you don't know the basics of the naturalization test that new citizens have to pass. So I picked out about 30 questions. I gave them the answers. I didn't pick out what's the largest river in America. Those kind of questions are on there. I brought things tied to politics. I gave them the questions. I gave them the answers. I then gave them the test. And it was an eye-opener that they got through high school with so little knowledge on the basics of our political system, which is the whole, everything you do in life, every job you have funds the political system in this country, and you either understand it or you're just being taken as a sap and just, let it go. Some of the questions, this was back, I didn't teach after COVID. I didn't teach after that, but this is pre-COVID. So one of the questions was, who's the Speaker of the House? And again, remember, I gave them the questions, I gave them the answers, now I'm giving them the test. And one person wrote down just the word Tammy. Not Nancy Pelosi, but Tammy. And I don't know, maybe someday there'll be a speaker named Tammy, but I think she'll have a last name. But Nancy Pelosi's name was everywhere. She wasn't just on my test, right? But I don't think they equate seeing the word Nancy Pelosi with what she was. Who is the Chief Justice of the United States now? They would just say the President, Chief Justice. Name one U.S. territory. Some of them wrote Hawaii. No, it's a state. It's not a territory. Puerto Rico's a territory. Guam's a territory. Which branch of the government passes law? There's executive, legislative, and the judicial, but most of them didn't get that. The one that got me the most, which shows me how much reading is important, especially in history. The question was, before he was president, Eisenhower was a general. What war was Eisenhower a general in? Now, those of you listening, I hope you jump to the answer, but let me tell you what these students that had graduated high school in Kern County, what their answers was. Which war was Eisenhower a general in before he was president? Several of them wrote down Civil War. Okay, so that told me they don't know when he was president. They don't know when the Civil War was, and they don't know where World War II fit into a guy named General Eisenhower, who was, along with Churchill, the two people I credit with our success in the World War II. And so my fault on that, I blame the fact that there's so much online reading that your history books don't show you a history from day one through day whatever, 1850, 1776 to 1850, or 1850 to 1950. Something where you see and you have a sense of history just that way, let alone the fact that you should just understand Eisenhower's role in World War II. Let's hope they're teaching World War II and Dwight Eisenhower and what he did. It'd be frightening if they're not, but I know when I was in school, and it wasn't before, during, or right after World War II, I'm not that old, we didn't study much about World War II. I don't think we got much past the Civil War. I think that's the way a lot of schools are today. So I encourage that reading. I spend a lot of time reading, even if I have the TV on, I'm reading. But please think about that, especially if you got little kids, that they see that life is more than that phone. I don't know, we didn't get any other people calling in with a question, so that's okay, but maybe I probably swamped them on my redistricting comments. So I do plan to be back hosting Ralph in a couple weeks when he's gone, and I want us to get into this. You hear sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, and it's a big story today because that's why so many illegals, criminal illegals, are roaming the streets, because there are places that voted sanctuary city, sanctuary state. This state didn't vote it, the legislature voted it, and we're living in a sanctuary state, and we have sanctuary cities. And that's pretty dangerous. And why is, in my book, how can it be that an agency, a city or a county or state, can tell the federal government, you're required by law to handle immigration, but we're not going to help you when we arrest somebody that you're looking for? And somebody robs a bank or somebody jaywalks or whatever it is, they won't turn that person over to the federal government. And I just don't see how that's legal. And I'm going to have a guest speaker that's going to talk about how, no, that isn't right. And we shouldn't let all these states and cities call themselves that. But that's what we got in California. They always go for the worst. And so that's one subject. And I hope you can tune in. It'll be Monday, August 4, that I'll be doing 3 hours. And that's one I'm also going to have on our great mayor of Taft, Dave Noerr, Noerr. He's brilliant on the whole energy situation. He explains it so much better than anybody else does. So I always like to have Dave on, and we'll have some other folks as well. But I want to thank JR for giving me this opportunity. I hope I helped explain a few things that you wonder about how it keeps going in the news every day. I'll learn this new setup that there's a camera, because I'm sorry, I forgot there was a camera for those of you listening or watching through camera. But we have just a few moments left, so take it easy this week. Read a book and watch what's happening to your taxes and help President Trump shut that spending down. Thank you. This is Cathy Abernathy.
This is AM 1180 KERN Green Acres. This is 96.1.